first thing I noticed was how silent it was. No crickets, no wind, nothing. Just my old pickup's tires crunching against gravel. I had just left my uncle's farm around 1 a.m., heading home after we'd been out late checking the irrigation pumps. Normally that road was comforting, endless cornfields on both sides, the sweet smell of cut hay hanging in the humid air, and the occasional porch light in the distance. But that night, it felt hollow. About halfway down, my headlights swept over something tall standing at the edge of the cornfield. At first I thought it was just a scarecrow, but my stomach immediately knotted up. The thing wasn't facing the road. It was turned sideways like it was listening. Its arms hung low, too long to be normal, and the way the light hit it, there was no shine of fabric, no straws sticking out. Just this matte, dark texture. I slowed down without meaning to, leaning forward over the wheel. My headlights caught what I swear looked like a pale, narrow face. No eyes that I could see, just an empty oval. Before the corn seemed to swallow it whole. I blinked and it was gone. I told myself I'd been awake too long. I rolled the window down, letting in the thick summer air, trying to shake off that cold feeling creeping up my neck. That's when I heard it. Something walking in the corn, matching my truck's speed. Each step sounded heavy, like it was crushing the stalks on purpose. Okay, nope. I muttered and pressed harder on the gas. The sound stopped. A couple miles later, I turned onto the paved road that led to my place. I glanced in the rearview mirror out of habit and nearly slammed on the brakes. In the red glow of my taillights, standing right at the edge of the road where the gravel met the pavement, was the same figure. Its head was tilted slightly, like it was studying me. I drove the rest of the way home way too fast. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I'd convinced myself it had to have been some weird trick of the light, or maybe a tall deer with mange or something. But just as I got out and slammed the truck door, I heard that same slow, deliberate crunch of footsteps coming from the empty lot across the street. I didn't sleep that night, and here's the part that still makes me uneasy. 2 days later, my uncle called, asking if I'd been out near the cornfield again. When I said no, he told me one of the irrigation pumps had been ripped out of the ground and left in the dirt, bent like it had been twisted by hand. He also mentioned that their scarecrow, the one that's been standing out there for years, was gone. It started with a knock, not loud, not urgent, just 3 slow, deliberate taps on the door. I had been sitting on the couch in my rented cabin, reading by lamplight, with the summer night pressing in through the open windows. The air smelled of pine and damp earth from an earlier rain, and the distant hum of cicadas was steady and calming. Until the knock. The weird thing was, I hadn't seen another person for hours. The last sign of life was an old pickup that had passed me on the dirt road before I reached the cabin. This place was about as remote as you could get. No neighbors within a quarter mile, no cell service, no random passersby. I froze listening. Another 3 taps, exactly the same rhythm. Hello. I called, my voice sounding smaller than I wanted it to. No answer. I got up slowly and peeked through the curtain. The porch light illuminated a small patch of clearing, but there was no one there. Just wet leaves glistening under the light, and beyond that the tree line. Dense, dark, and still. I tried to laugh it off. Probably some animal bumping into the wood. I went back to the couch, this time keeping the curtain open just enough to see the porch. An hour passed. The rain had started again, tapping against the roof. That's when I heard the knock for the 3rd time, except this time it came from the back door. I felt my throat tighten. The back door led out to a deck overlooking the woods, with no stairs down, so whoever, or whatever, was knocking would have had to climb up onto it. I grabbed the flashlight from my bag and walked to the kitchen, my bare feet feeling the cold of the wood floor. I shone the light through the glass. Nothing. Just the railing dripping wet. That was when I noticed something that made my chest go cold. Smears on the glass like long, wet streaks made by fingers. I locked the door and backed away, my hands shaking. I told myself I'd just wait until sunrise, then pack up and leave. But sleep never came. Every so often I'd hear faint tapping somewhere on the walls, moving from one side of the cabin to the other. The last time I heard it was around 4 a.m. Just one single knock, right next to the window by the couch where I sat clutching the flashlight. I didn't even dare look. When the sun finally came up, I stepped outside. Muddy footprints, bare human footprints, led from the tree line to both doors, then circled the cabin twice before vanishing into the woods. They were small, maybe the size of a child's, but spaced far apart, like whoever made them had taken huge strides. I drove straight back to town and left the key at the rental office without a word. A week later, I saw the cabin listed online again. In the photos on the far edge of the deck, there was something I swear hadn't been there before: a small wooden chair, facing the back door. It was just me, my fishing rod, and the water. The night was warm but still, with a thin layer of fog curling across the lake's surface. You could hear every ripple, every frog croak from the shore. I'd tied my boat to the dock and was leaning back, enjoying the quiet before heading home. The smell of the lake, mud, algae, that fresh wet wood scent from the dock was so familiar I could almost relax. That was when I saw the ripple. Not from a fish, it was too big and too smooth. It moved slowly across the fog, like something just under the surface was gliding toward the dock. I froze, staring. The ripple stopped about 20 feet away, and then something broke the surface. At first, it looked like the top of someone's head, slick and dark from the water. Then a pale face emerged, eyes open, unblinking. "Hey, you okay?" I called out without thinking. No response. The figure just floated there, half submerged. My stomach dropped. It didn't look like they were treading water, more like they were being held up by something beneath. The fog swirled, and for a second, I thought I saw shoulders, maybe arms, but the proportions were wrong. Too long. I took a step back on the dock, and that's when I heard it, water dripping. I looked down and saw wet footprints on the boards, leading from the edge of the dock right toward me. They weren't mine. I had been sitting still. I spun around, heart racing. No one was there, just fog and shadows. When I turned back toward the water, the face was gone. The surface was flat, like nothing had been there at all. I grabbed my gear and untied the boat, ready to head to shore. But the moment I pushed off, I felt the boat shift, like something had brushed against the hull. A deep, dull thud echoed from underneath, followed by a faint scraping sound that traveled from the back of the boat toward the front. I rowed hard, barely breathing. The sound stopped as soon as I reached shallow water. I didn't even tie the boat when I got back. I just ran to my truck. 2 days later, my friend Mark, who fishes the same lake, called me. He told me he'd gone out the night before and seen the fog too, and in it, a pale face watching him from the center of the lake. He swore it smiled before slipping under. Neither of us fish there anymore. But sometimes when the wind's just right, you can still smell the lake all the way from town. And I swear, if I breathe it in too long, I can hear that faint dripping sound again.